OMO Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
We're coming back with more Bruce Lee action and the classic Fist of Fury or the Chinese Connection, depending on which way you want to look at it. We got choices here, but which always made it confusing back in the day, because when you went to go buy these movies, when they'd come in those big old, Bruce Lee and a bunch of other people's movie sets, you'd be like, oh shit, cool, Fist of Fury. I really need this one. I need the second Bruce Lee one for my collection. And then you'd be like, oh, it's another copy of The Big Boss, damn it. Well, maybe next time I'll get lucky.
I don't know what it was, but something about this movie, because we've said this a couple times before, but back in Sonora, we didn't really have a whole lot of options of what to buy and movies to get. All we really had was Walmart, and then Village Tunes, which was a really cool little indie record store. What?
And the pawn shop, even though it's been there for quite some time. Not there anymore, sadly, though.
But when Village Tunes went under, and then this one, and the pawn shop, that became this next spot. But then that went under, all we have is Walmart. And then a lot of times, okay, well, let's journey onward out to Modesto so we can get westerns, anime, and kung fu movies, and then maybe some CDs, like some punk CDs we can't get here, like Dropkick Murphys or The Stooges or something,
or even random Stones albums that you're like, oh, I've never seen this one before.
because Walmart didn't have the greatest selection of that. So now for some reason though, Chinese Connection, as we know it, or it was really Fist of Fury, for some reason, this one would always pop up on those 8 kung fu movies for $20. This one would pop up a lot of all of Bruce Lee's movies. I wouldn't see Way of the Dragon, or I wouldn't see Big Boss, I wouldn't see Game of Death or anything like that. I would see this, and then 2 or 3 knockoff Bruce Lee movies.
Well, oddly enough, for me, it was the other way around. The Big Boss was the one that was easier, because I bought this movie twice thinking I was getting Fist of Fury, or the Chinese Connection one, and then it was it ended up being the Big Boss. Now, granted, I paid $2 for the movie, so I wasn't, at the end of the day, it's not whatever, goes in the collection, but it was one of those ones, this is the one I had, this is the last one I was able to sort of secure out of the Bruce Lee movies. I had the hardest time finding this one, oddly enough.
This was the first Bruce Lee movie I saw the whole way through. I saw a little bit of Enter the Dragon when I was a little kid, and then, came back to it later. But this was the first Bruce Lee movie I totally saw. And it was one, I didn't really know what to expect. And I wasn't immediately blown away by it, because it is kind of a slow burn movie. But I was really, surprised and blown away by Bruce Lee's martial arts, his ability and the fight scenes and the choreography. That stood out to me. And the story itself, most of his movies are pretty straightforward and pretty simplistic, and that's fine. That's great for what these are. When I first saw it, I was just okay, it's a pretty simple story, but whatever. And then came back to it later and had a lot more appreciation, a lot more respect for it. And the funny thing, watching this came back to a lot of memories, and I'm not going to go on this big long tangent of what this was, but watching this back when we were in middle school, back in high school, when we were doing multimedia, one of the movies I was trying to make was a parody / love letter to martial arts movies, and I was using Chinese Connection, or Fist of Fury, is the main basis and the main plot point for it. So watching this, I was oh shit. This was Brandon was going to play the Bruce Lee character. You were going to play the Master. I was going to be a Chuck Norris kind of ripoff, So, and then it wasn't just Bruce Lee. It was heavily Bruce Lee. But there's other stuff in there, the 5 Venoms, Sony Chiba stuff, a little bit of Ip Man. So it was sprinkled with a bunch of different stuff. But the movie probably would have turned out being dog shit if I ever finished it. But I'm watching this just reminded me of all that, and just brought me back to high school, really.
Yeah, just those good old times was hey, let's go make a kung fu movie, because that seems like the plausible one. Because I think it's one of those ones well, we can't carry guns on campus. You know what I mean? People seem to frown on that one. Shit, they even frowned. I remember when they took. Remember when that guy took away our fucking nunchucks. The padded nunchuck. Now, granted, in hindsight, when you kind of say that, it almost sounds like one of those ones where our parents be like, well, why'd you guys bring fucking nunchucks to school in the first place? Like, you know what I mean?
We're
like
filming a kung fu movie.
Like, yeah, it's like as a kid, you're like, oh, you need nunchucks. It's a kung fu movie. At some point, someone's gotta bust out the nunchucks. But I just remember, like, this just goes to go show. Like, I feel because like nowadays, like, if you went to fucking school and like the teachers would have caught you with like fucking nunchucks, they'd be like, lock that kid up. Shit, he brought nunchucks today. It's a gun tomorrow. You know what I mean? But in our time period, it was just like, you know, just like I remember it was just like the guy rolls up like. With like the and like a fucking golf cart, just being like, okay, boys, gotta take your nunchucks from you. And it's just like, oh man, this fucking guy comes by, takes your nunchucks, whatever. Well, what are you guys doing? We're filming the movie. Just class related? Well, yeah, man, fucking class related. Oh, okay, as long as class related, no one's getting their dicks sucked, right?
I'm on you, all of you.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was the one thing that was, I really think, because like. We lived in an era where it was like, you know, making movies. This class was so fucking fresh that I don't think any of the other teachers knew anything about it yet. So they were almost very concerned and scared at what was going on. They're like, we saw these kids. They're trying to do a stunt where one was going to jump off of a fucking storage unit container. And I don't know if he was supposed to do a triple flip, but boy, sure did he fall on his back when he went for it.
That literally got that on camera, yeah.
All I remember is that I was the one that, like, he was supposed to land behind, so I didn't really see it. All I heard was just, thud!
And it was just this whole thing of, I remember that, I understand the reason, like, okay, so what's this class do? They make movies. Okay, that's neat. How do they make the movies? They go out around the campus unsupervised with plastic weapons, and sometimes they jump off storage units.
Yeah, sometimes they'll get their setup, you know, or they'll find things out there that probably weren't meant to be picked up and used. And I just remember grabbing like those giant metal bars, and it was I don't think it was for the same movie, but we went up there for like another one, and we were at the top of like the bleachers at the school, the football field, and we were kind of like doing fucking like the Tuscan Raider thing, like, and then I remember just doing the thing because you're a fucking kid, you're just like, I want to see what this metal rod happens if I drop it and let it roll all the way down. And so you falls on the bleacher, it's like, douche, douche, boosh, douche, douche.
All the way down the fucking top of the bleachers. That's where you see, like, off of the distance, you see the fucking little, like, yard duty golf cart kind of rolling by, like, we gotta get the fuck out of here.
Scramble, grab the camera. It's the only thing that matters in life. I don't know. Making martial arts movies was just like, it's so much fun. Even if the movies turn out to be like nobody cares about, but the people that were actually in it, like, it still is so much fun to fucking make it. You know what I mean? Do you still have those high 8 tapes? You sound fucking old when we say it like that.
If I do, they're in a box in a basement. I don't even know if I have any of my old like movies from high school by this point. I remember them, but I don't know if I even have them anymore. But yeah, watching this totally brought me back to that, and it was one of those things of just seeing like certain characters, like, oh yeah, I was gonna get so and so to play the guy based off him. I was gonna get our other friend over here doing that, and just watching the movie now, knowing more about Bruce Lee than when I first saw the movie. And when I was initially trying to make the little like parody movie, I heavily researched Bruce Lee a lot more, as well as other movies and other things, but. This one right here, this is the second movie he did with whatchamacallit.
Lo Wei.
With, Lo Wei. And Lo Wei, even as far as putting himself in the movie, is the police inspector who doesn't do jack shit.
Yeah, just like one of those ones like, yeah, okay, I'll get to it, guys, but make sure you go apologize to those Japanese folks now, you know, because I don't want to come back here again.
Well, you know, they totally killed our master. Oh, there's no proof of that. Like, yeah, well, there's no proof that Bruce Lee is going out here killing these guys. Like, oh, well, you know, they're Japanese. They know best, you know, so.
Yeah, you know, they wouldn't have invaded here if they didn't know any better. I just love that this guy's, like, really sold on the Japanese. Like, you know what? When they came in there, I was like, good, finally some law and order showing up. Hi.
Here's the thing about
Police Inspector Lo Wei. How you doing? Here, come on over. Here, come invade. You know what? Be my honor. I'll step aside. I get no respect here in fucking Shanghai.
Let me roll the carpet out for you. There you go.
Yeah,
it doesn't go that far.
Here,
Low
you
budget,
boys,
you understand.
You're not carrying guns. You don't look too intimidating. Here, take this gun. Put a bayonet on there. That always scares them.
I'll say the thing about this movie, because it's pretty straightforward. This is actually very much the... I mean, I guess in a lot of kung fu movies, you had the, like, warring clans. This is a little bit of that, but it's more of just, like, simple, they killed our master, we must avenge our master. And I think the movie sends some mixed messages a little bit, and that's not enough for me to dislike it or really mark it down, because it does have this whole thing. The whole thing with Big Boss, where, spoilers ahead, folks, where it has the whole thing of, like, hey, you know what? They weren't doing shit. We had to take the law in our own hands. Like, well, maybe you shouldn't have. Well, maybe they shouldn't have murdered my master. Yeah, well, shit happens.
Well, that also comes from there was a weird thing in China back in the day that, like, if you broke the law, if your character broke the law in the movie, there had to be some kind of consequences. Like, they couldn't just fucking go out on, like, a murder spree revenge, even if it was all in the right. Like, there had to be either they get arrested, like the Big Boss, or, as in this movie, fucking they get, like, the, Butch Cassidy type ending.
Yeah. Well, I guess even then, though, because we don't really... I mean, because this movie has some criticism now about being very anti-Japanese, which I guess maybe, going off of, like, this little thing I read, I don't know how true it is, Bruce Lee even took a little bit of issue with. I guess Lo Wei really just did not like the Japanese that much. But, granted,
his character fucking loved him.
His character loved him, yeah. His character was just about ready to suck their dick.
Well, and here's kind of the thing, too. I think this is one of those ones, like, especially, like, it's sort of like only in like the last like almost like 10 years have I kind of learned like more and more and more about like the Japanese occupation of China. It's like one of those ones because like in American studies, like they skip that part of World War II over, like just not even brought up whatsoever. Even the fucking History Channel never gets around to that section. They'd be like, oh yeah, Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. That was the start of that. And it's like, oh no, there was like literally like 25 years beforehand that the Japanese were just going around like, trying to claim, like, land and take over places. And it was that whole thing that they're like, well, fuck it. Spain had all these years to go conquer. Britain had all these years. Shit, even Portugal goes out and conquers places. Like, Japan wants a little bit of this conquering. Be like, yo, we're all done with that. You know what I mean? Like, shit, we realized that was a bad idea. Even the fucking Spanish, it took them fucking forever, but they finally realized that was a bad idea. It took America to come by and kick them out of their like, territories, but... and then of course America's like, well, that's kind of nice here. Let's set up a military base in Guam. You know what I mean? Shit, I like it here. You know what I mean? Like you kind of do what you want out of God's eyes.
Where are you going with that umbrella? Put it back up.
Yeah, it's like, shit, I ain't fucking leaving. Well, get the Spanish out here. I don't want them fucking around, but so it's that kind of thing. Like once you start learning, you're like, shit, they fucking invaded China and they just like did a number on like the Chinese and so on. So it's like. It's one of those ones where if someone could say, like, I think, like, if someone's trying to do Captain Hindsight and then nowadays be looking at this period, they're like, man, that's very anti-Japanese. I'm like, yeah, but these people all grew up in a time period where, like, the fucking Japanese just kind of were, like, commanding orders, telling you what you can and can't do, and all this shit. So it's like, when you see these kind of movies where it's kind of like, China versus Japan and it's in anywhere from, like, 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s or so on, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there just was that. It was just like that war that just was not shared with the rest of the world in a sense. And so like I see it as those ones like it's just like that was just like that's like a time period where just like you just had these Japanese that was just the only Japanese you saw generally were like bullies at that time period. They weren't fun Pokemon traders, and whatnot like that we see in the 90s. It wasn't like fucking. It was like if Ryu came by and just started fucking shooting Hadokens at everybody in China. You'd be like, where the fuck did he learn that ability?
Like now it's one of those things. Don't take it as me trying to like find like trying to beat it down or like I totally get where it comes from and just because for a long time I think that like I'm just surprised that like I'm surprised Bruce Lee was like you're leaning a little hard into this, but I think I've read somewhere, I don't know if this is true at all, his mom was some time ago I read that like his mom or his grandmother someone was like had a little bit of Japanese in them. So I don't know how true that is. That was something I read a long time ago. Maybe might be wrong, but I know that his mom has a little bit of European descent in her as well. So yeah, maybe by that point he was. I think at the time Bruce Lee was a pretty much open-minded guy, but aside from that, he just really did not get along with Lo Wei, and this is the last movie they worked on. He at several points was about to get in a fist fight with him, and he literally had to hide behind his wife.
Well, yeah, and it's like Raymond Chow did the thing. It's like, okay, Bruce, if you just work with him, here's the thing: you could be the stunt coordinator. You know, he won't have anything to say. Good. Fucking don't touch my fucking martial arts moves.
Don't touch my martial arts moves. I won't touch your stupid-looking fedora.
Yeah, exactly. That you have to fucking parade around here and so on. And I will say though that this movie right here is kind of the movie that kind of has like almost like the Bruce Lee superhero character that we all kind of know. I feel really comes from here, because like the Big Boss is one of those ones like you can kind of see the traces of the Bruce Lee-ness, but it's almost sort of like maybe not the exact same character. Where in this one, it's like the full, like when you think of like a poster or a picture of Bruce Lee, this movie embodies that a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of the stern eyes. He hardly ever smiles, and if he does, it usually has ulterior motives. Like there's the part where he's deciding he's gonna like just disguise himself up as like some awkward, clumsy telephone technician, just smiling, and now he's like, yeah. But then even then though, as soon as he's done, it's like, have you ever seen the movie I Saw the Devil?
You let me borrow.
You know the end of the movie when after the guy's emotionless basically throughout the whole movie. At the end of the movie, his wife, like after he kills the guy who killed his wife, he just breaks down crying, emotional, like just all emotions pouring out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I kind of got the same vibe of that from Bruce Lee, because there's a couple points where he does play a character, and he's like, hey, and as soon as they leave, he doesn't cry and break down, but he does that thing that's just like stern, like, you know, like it's like a switch he just flipped, you know?
Well, it's almost like he's like very like almost like you could say like Batman in this one, where like he'll disguise himself and really get in that character that's not who he is whatsoever. And it sounds so weird, but like when he's kind of playing like that, like the telephone like repairman guy and what have you, like it almost gives you like a feeling like almost like a Jim Carrey movie. At that part too, because he comes in, he's really pulling it out like, it's like almost like, here comes the goofy fucking telephone guy. He's gonna tell me everything he knows about, like almost like a telephone nerd. Like that's the best way to kind of describe it. You know, like a guy who's like way too into his job. He knows all the facts. You know what I mean, and so on. And I just like those kind of characters he plays throughout. Because then the other one he has is there's like one where he's like playing the old man, he's like selling the newspapers and whatnot, just so he can get like the inside.
He's doing the whole Matches Malone thing.
Yeah, that's what it's totally like, you know. And I like that because when he's doing like the telephone operator, he's able to sneak into like the Japanese like dojo and kind of figure out everything and their layout and what have you and what's going down. And I think that's also even when he learns that like his master actually was poisoned by them.
He finds out that like his master was poisoned by like two guys that actually worked at the dojo. Two guys, like I think it was the cook and the caretaker, and they were paid off by the Japanese. And something this movie gets across, because there's the one guy who I think his name is Wu, who's the Chinese interpreter.
Oh yeah,
that dude's he's meant to be like a sniveling little weasel. Just you hate him so much, and you think, okay, well, he's with them, so he's tight with the Japanese or whatever. But then there's that party the night he dies, and they're all partying, and like, act like you're the rest of your people. Act like a dog. Walk to the door. You're like, you don't feel bad for him because you already know he's a piece of shit, but there's so much of just that, like, oh man, even this guy isn't respected by him.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just don't have any care or concern for these guys at all. It's just like, he's just our interpreter. That's all he is. He's easy to manipulate.
Yeah, the person I feel really bad for in this movie, double check his name here. The person I feel really bad is James Tien character, who
poor James Tien just always gets like in Bruce Lee movies, it doesn't work out for him.
I feel bad for him because his whole thing is he's like, okay, Master just died. We're trying to make this thing run as smooth as possible. Come on, guys, let's just make this happen. And then that is the James Tien character, right?
He's not the eldest brother character, right? You're talking about the guy who's kind of almost taken over as like the new master in a sense.
Yeah, only just because the elder died. So he's basically the guy who's basically that was James Tien, right?
I don't think that was James Tien.
Oh, I feel like a fucking asshole now. All right, well, okay.
Because I think James
That guy-
Tien's like almost like the same age as. I mean, he's probably just a little bit older than Bruce Lee, but he's about the same age as Bruce Lee.
I thought he looked different. That's why I didn't know it was him at first. But I know James Tien's in a lot of the same movies. I think, you know what? I think he's the guy. Oh, he gets killed. No, that's who James Tien. He's one of the guys who gets killed. That's right. The guy who, unfortunately, I'm trying to blank on his name, but there's the guy who's basically the next in line, and he doesn't really even want it. He's not even prepared to be a teacher. He was just more of a really good student, and since he was the teacher's right-hand man, now he's basically thrusted upon this, and he knows, like, okay, Bruce can knock them all out, no problem. Me, myself, though, and the rest of them, I don't fucking know, man. We really gotta plan this out, and even though he really wants to go after the Japanese, he can't bring himself to do it just because he doesn't know if he has it in him.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like this kind of thing is just like almost like he's like, you know what? We know the Japanese probably did it. Let's make it easy and not go after for revenge and whatnot. And I will say this: I do think that like the fact that master guy is actually a real person, that they have it kind of, you know, I mean they're crafting a story sort of around it, but like that guy was like the turn of the century in like late 1800s or something like that. Like a Russian guy was trying to say that, you know, Chinese are weak, like one of those sort of things, and then the master came up and just like whooped his ass, and then he's like, oh, sorry, apologize and go back to like Siberia. You know, one of those things, and then it's like, oh yeah, Chinese fucking hero, and then like he kind of went out and, you know, battled other, you know, back in those days where it's like, well, you beat a Russian, let's go find somebody else for you to beat up. Hey, there's a Jewish guy, well, he's not trying to fight you, go get him. You proved the Chinese strongest. and then at some point, you know, he was poisoned during the Japanese occupation, so like I guess that's where it all kind of comes around.
Yeah. So I was just trying to find the name of that actor, but unfortunately I don't remember the character's name. But that guy, of all people, really stood out to me. I mean, Bruce, of course, stands out the most, but that guy stood out to me just because it was just interesting seeing this guy in this situation that's well beyond his ability, and he's just trying to maintain, like, he's just trying his best. And there's the cop. There's the cop played by Lo Wei, who is very much trying to be, you know, he's meant to be, I think, like, look, I don't want to arrest you, but I will if I have to. But I guess the guy's so fucking useless the whole time that it's one of those things of, like, that character, you don't really feel it as much. I know what they're trying to do. And I could even see that part, like, that part when, near the end, before he faces the firing squad, and Bruce grabs Lo Wei, pulls him aside, like, I need to talk to you for a second. I can see that part not being scripted. I don't know if it is. I can totally see that he just firmly puts his hand on his shoulder. Let's talk. Right here by the pillar. And you know, he probably looked at the camera guy like, keep filming this, you might fucking kill me.
I love that scene too, because it's just one of those ones that Bruce Lee's like, I am not a well-educated man, but I want you to make sure that this fucking school is protected if I have to go out there. You know, it's just like, just super like, yo, you fucking do this, or I'll fucking, you know, kill you in death. Oh, and that one guy's name, it's Tien Thing. That's where there's a Tien there.
There is a Tien, so that was my confusion. Okay.
But,
oh, yeah, his character's name, I think his character's name, Tien. No, Tien is the guy that got hung. Tien is one of the guys who, I think Tien is one of the guys
well,
who plays in the Master.
There's a character, okay, this is where it's confusing. There's a character's name that's Tien, then there's two actors with the name. One of the Tien is the first name, and one of the Tien is the last name.
Yeah, Fan, that's right.
You know what? It's
Fang
just like Tien in Dragon Ball Z, it's got 3 eyes. We got 3 Tiens in this.
That's fitting. That makes sense. You put it in language I understand.
And I have to say, speaking of Dragon Ball Z, I love how the Master almost looks like Chaozu is like an adult. I mean, I know Chaozu is an adult, but let's be honest. Like, look at the Master. Like, there's even that statue there that's got the total Chaozu design of like the white face and the red cheeks and everything like that. It's like there's that scene I love so much. It's in the very beginning of the movie where like Bruce Lee's kind of girlfriend, who's like also she's in the Big Boss. She's the ice, shaven lady. And she's also in Way of the Dragon as well too. She's the only Chinese lady in that one.
The only lady in the movie.
Yeah, like literally the only.
Other than the lady who shoots Bruce Lee like a flirty glance.
Oh yeah, there's that one Italian lady at the beginning. Bruce is like.
Or the old bitch staring him down
just staring. Yeah.
Like in his personal bubble, and he has this look on his face like, I have to fuck this old bitch up.
If that's how the movie started, and this like fucking just took that lady out.
But just like, well, I'm already in the airport. I can just run for it.
But I love that shot where when it's like at the very beginning after it explains like how the master died and so on, and then she comes to go check on Bruce Lee, and he's just sitting there and he's like looking up at the statue, and he's like just kind of like mouth is sort of open, and then like he looks like, huh? Like when she walks in, like I don't know what it is. There's just like. He's gone like primal, because that's almost like the thing I like about Bruce Lee, like his normal character, not when he's trying to character act and play like other things in this. His normal character is just almost really like a psychopath guy that loves his master more than anything. He almost loves the master a little too much, because there's that scene where like, I'm gonna probably have to go, and he's talking to Nora Meow and whatnot, and she's like, well, okay, but maybe when you come back we can finally get married and so on. He's like, I know. But could you leave the room for the moment, because if I'm gonna stay one more night here, I want to spend it with Master. Like he
just like strokes the picture, like she's gone.
She's gone, Master. It's just us now. Like he really likes Master a little too much. Like, I don't know. Like that is kind of the guy who's almost like. Probably the best at martial arts at that school, but he's also like totally the loose cannon. Like nowadays, they'd probably be like, this guy has a disorder or something like that. We gotta be a little bit dangerous. Should we be teaching him this really dangerous martial arts skills?
Well, then they turn. He's like, wah! Just punching a hole through the wall. You could tell him.
Yeah, exactly.
He just broke a cinder block with his forehead, and he just got right back up. All right. Yeah. Maybe we'll tell him tomorrow.
Well, that's still how that school kind of would work anyway. It's like, you know what? This is one of those schools where everything's a tomorrow project.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If they're putting off like telling, like, going after the school that killed their master, they're definitely putting off, like, should we help out the sociopath who just kind of sits in the dark staring at the statue of his master? I mean, he's not even dead yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, here's another thing, though. I almost think, like, and this isn't me trying to, like, bring it down too much, because he said he came back to marry her. And I could almost see it being not like an arranged marriage, but just kind of like I throw punches, you throw punches.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's enough, right? We can make it work off that. Like, well, I mean, I guess it's yeah, okay, cool. Well, you're the probably most jacked guy here, so why not? Sure, let's see what happens.
I mean, I see Jackie Chan was out there fighting, but he's a nobody at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's even interesting. I didn't know, because I thought he was just in Enter the Dragon. I didn't know he was also in this one right here. So
I just read that because it said that in Jackie Chan's book and whatnot that he was in this one. I like how he's literally just. It's just funny when you think about it, like, you got Jackie Chan. What's he doing? Well, we got him out there fighting that girl. It looks like Pei from Virtual Fighter. Like that's his only scene.
Well, it's also like. It's just funny to me. I mean, he probably had to stand out. They had to be, when he took that fall and was able to keep on going, that had to impress everybody. I could definitely see, like, because he went on to star in other Lo Wei movies down the line. So he's like, you know what? He's not Bruce Lee, but he's a lot fucking cheaper, and he's probably easier to work with.
Well, because that was the thing, is like Lo Wei kept trying to make Jackie Chan be the next Bruce Lee, and of course Jackie Chan, that was like the last thing he's like, I'm not Bruce Lee. Look at me, I'm not fucking Bruce Lee. I can't be that serious type character. Even though I will say I do like whenever there's those weird movies you get every once in a while of Jackie Chan when he is kind of that serious, like Clint Eastwood like character. I know he's
usually wearing like a general uniform or some shit.
Well, it's like I know he doesn't like that kind of stuff, but like to me, I feel like that's kind of interesting because like I'm so used to him being, just, normal Jackie Chan, where he's kind of a little bit goofy, but still kind of like gets things done as the underdog. I kind of like just once in a while. Like there was one that I got, I know I'm totally off topic, but like it was like called The Protector, and I think it was one of those ways that maybe it was past a little way by this point, but it's like it was like the second American movie he did, and like Jackie Chan like hates it, but it's like it's kind of interesting because it's like very like that hard like R-rated like gritty like American like crime story movie, and like it's kind of just interesting seeing Jackie Chan do that. It's the only movie that Jackie Chan says "fuck" in too as well.
Oh, awesome!
So yeah. But
I have to check that one out at some point.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't seen a new Jackie Chan movie in a while. So, I mean, granted, he's not filming as much as he used to. Maybe he is, and a lot of them just don't come to America like they used to. But
that's mostly what happens. Because I always see him pop up, and it's like, oh, there it is. There's supposed to be that one of him and Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've been waiting for it for fucking ever. But,
what?
Yeah, it's. I think it was supposed to actually come out this year, and then, who knows
Corona.
how. Yeah, but like, it was like Jackie Chan, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm fucking sold.
He could have been the Expendables, definitely.
I feel like if Expendables would have went on, it totally would have been the case. But yeah, well, Jackie Chan. Speaking, go back to Fist of Fury. Jackie Chan is in the kind of like the somewhat sequel, like the new Fist of Fury, directed by Lo Wei as well too.
Sorry, you blanked out there for a minute.
Oh, I said Jackie Chan was in Jackie Chan was in the new Fist of Fury, though kind of sequel by Lo Wei, so sort of sequel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that on there. There's a bunch of Fist of Fury. There's a Fist of Fury TV show starring Donnie Yen.
I know. I saw him like, dude, that sounds amazing. And then there's that one that I forgot about that I've always kind of wanted to see, but there's the Jet Li remake of Fist of Fury, and it's like, well, that probably is fucking badass too. I've always heard good things about it. And it's just one of those ones it's been on my list for like ever to get, and I just never have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to. Yeah, I'd be up for. We'll have to probably put a few of these on the list and come back to them. But yeah. I'll say this regarding the villains. The one thing is, because Bruce Lee is like such a badass. There's even like the scene, because he is kind of like Asian Clint Eastwood to a certain extent. He just kind of sits there. Like, there's even that part when like, because when they, like you said, going back to the whole master thing, when he gets there and they're bearing the master, it's just like, oh shit. You forgot to tell him, didn't you? And he's going to try and dig up the body right here. I like how they just whack him in the head with his shovel, as if like, all right, well, we'll put him on the couch. He'll get over it in a minute. and then like, there's that part where he's just sitting there. He's like, he was poisoned. Like, and you really believe them, And he just turns and like that's where like if you're watching the dub, that's where the dub first really shows, because that big space on his lips, like. I don't believe it! Like, there's a total bad sync. Like, oh, we only got one shot at this. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I only got the recorder for tonight, so...
It's 1 to 2 shots at max.
Yeah.
Sorry, go now. I'm sorry. We're gone. I think I got another one in me. That's all we got. Next shot. Okay. And his whole, like... The villains in it, when he goes up to him... And granted, the only villain that is really a threat... is the Russian, who is that dude's been in a lot of Bruce Lee movies. He was Robert Baker. No, not Robert Baker. Was it Robert Baker?
Yeah, Robert Baker, because that's one of Bruce Lee's like original students.
Because that dude, isn't he also in? Yeah, he's in Way of the Dragon. He's like the Russian they fight at the beginning of. That's right. So. I say a lot of movies, but like 2 movies.
But as far as the Bruce Lee goes, that's like 50% of his movies almost.
If you're grading on a curve, yeah. So he was threatening, and I'll say this: even though he's meant to be kind of like a fumbling idiot, there's like the heavier set Japanese dude who looks more of kind of like. He was like an instructor over at the YMCA for a period of time. Like, you could tell back in his day, he was probably like a badass, but now it's almost kind of like he's been at it for so long. He still happens to have a black belt, but he's a little more like, oh, this isn't as easy as it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's just like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to go out running with Bruce Lee every morning anymore. I'm kind of done with those days.
Like, that guy, like, I thought the way he killed him was cool when he, like, he's coming at him with a katana, which Bruce Lee says, I would not recommend that fight in real life, but it looked cool. And where he, like, kicks the katana up in the air, grabs a guy, breaks his back, bends him forward, and the katana just impales him.
Yeah, no, that one's totally badass. I love that right there. Because that's the thing is...
And then you can't forget the
Well, because then Bruce Lee, he goes and he hangs the bodies up just to really make a fucking scene out of it. And I like how he hangs them up, like, right down the street from, like, the fucking, like, his, you know, Jingwu school. It's just like, maybe you shouldn't hang them so close to your own school.
Will you try lugging this fucker, like, another block down? Fuck that. I'm doing it right here.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? The police are already coming around. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to go down to the restaurant. They're not going to go down to the bakery. They're going to come down to the school because that's where they know violence starts.
The station is literally 2 buildings over, all right? They haven't. Don't ask me why they haven't got a better beat on this just yet. Like, all right, guys, we're going to get them next time. Like, fuck! You just wake up in the morning and see it.
Haven't had another body fucking hanging from up there? Spectre Low? Oh, Jesus. Gotta answer the call again.
Hanging it like he's a fucking Christmas ornament.
Well, and this movie also has that other, like, really kind of, like, almost, like, famous scene that I feel kind of comes around again with, like, Quentin Tarantino, but there's the part where Bruce Lee goes to walk in the park, and there's, like, that, you know, Pakistani guy or whatever, and he points to the sign, and it says, like, no dogs in Chinese allowed. Which I always think of just, like, you know, Quentin Tarantino also uses that in Hateful Eight, where it's, like...
Hateful Eight.
Where Samuel Jackson's got a good old speech that goes with, like, how it's supposed to go, but, like, the no dogs and Mexicans allowed. And it's like, and she took down the sign because she started allowing dogs in there. But I like when Bruce just kind of freaks out, because then there's, like, the lady walks in with the dog. He's like, well, what the fuck? Why is she going to go in there? It's like, well, you know, foreign ambassador, whatever. Fuck, yeah, she gets to do that. But if you know what? I'll make an exception. If you walk in there like a dog, I'll let you through. And then he just fucking, like, jumps up and kicks the sign, and it breaks and so on. He's just going to start, like, kicking everybody around. It's just like, oh, no, hold on, Bruce. Let's calm down. We'll take him back. He's a little off his meds right now. You know, our school's like one of those ones, we like to learn martial arts, but, you know, it's kind of like a stress reliever type thing. You know, unwind from the day.
Remember, Bruce, in the dojo, not out there. Like, no, I know you're mad. I know you're mad.
I feel like, in a sense, that school there, it's almost like it's like the YMCA of, like, martial arts schools. Like, you're going there for, like, you know, burn a little extra calories the day. You know, it's not about getting in a fight, fellas. It's a sport. It's like when they treat martial arts as a sport. It's like, no, don't you fucking call it a sport. like calling it a sport just feels like you take all, like, the coolness out of it.
I would watch a modern retelling of this where it's like the YMCA dojo versus, like, some, like, mall dojo somewhere.
Just like in a sense, yeah, just one of those like a UFC gym.
Yeah, it's not like it's in somewhere like, oh, it's in San Francisco or in New York. It's like, no, it's like in Brigsby, Montana.
Yeah, exactly. Just like one of those ones. Just the school goes after. That's what you almost. It sounds weird. Like that would be one of those fun, like, American sort of remakes of, like, it's Fist of Fury, but it's about, like, in a sense, like, let's have it like almost like the old, like, I guess I was gonna say not really necessarily mom pop, but more kind of like community center type, like, kung fu place. You know, something that was set in part there by the state and against, like, the box gym type.
I could see something like that, or it's like, oh, they just don't appreciate old kung fu like they used to, Thomas. I know, Martha.
Yeah, what? Just like, so some guy, like, leaning over the fence at a farm, like, you know, I miss the old days of, you know, the kung fu. Yeah, that was a good time. Now the boys are just into their UFCs, and I just
shaved heads.
I can't tell the difference between any of them anymore. Nobody does a high kick. I mean, I know that it's not practical, but boy, does it look cool.
One day we can go back to that.
Remember Chuck Norris and his stretch jeans? Yeah, why did those ever fall out of fashion? I don't know.
He has like a fucking massive tattoo of Walker, Texas Ranger on his back.
Just doing a fucking spin kick to somebody.
But going forward from here, I mean, the movie's pretty straightforward, in all honesty. But that's a good thing. Not everything has to be overly complicated. And it's just basically just a really awesome kung fu movie. And at the time, the choreography, I mean, there's the one scene that really stands out when he first goes over there. I'm like, probably the coolest scene in the whole movie is when he first goes to the Japanese dojo, and he starts like, there's the one guy like, oh, so you want to fight, huh? Then you must be tired of living. Just bitch slaps that guy, like, fuck you and your fucking fake-ass blonde hair. And then...
when he brings that sign in or whatnot, and he's like, because that's the thing is...
eat.
It's like the singer says, the sick man of East Asia and whatnot. He's like, I'll make you eat the sign. And fucking Bruce Lee just goes in there and just fucking whoops ass. And then, of course, when he shows back up to his gym, they're like, Bruce, well, you went in there and you caused a ruckus at the Japanese. They're from Japan now. They're going to take things a little bit more serious, They're not fun-loving like us Chinese fellas.
Well, during that fight, there's that part where he picks up two guys, and he's very obviously swinging around two dummies for a second.
Like,
then throws them, and then just like it's a guy like just jumping backwards in a frame, rolling back.
Yeah, exactly. But that scene is always totally badass. He just fucking kills it in there. I feel like this is just where you start getting those like really like almost like those extreme Bruce Lee poses that I think like he sort of took from like kind of like old samurai movies, because in those ones they have like that kind of like very like super kind of like acting for like emotion. Not like I guess you would say it's maybe slight overacting, but not like in a play way, but just in the sense where like when it's like emotional, you feel that emotion a little bit more than like probably a normal person would. And I feel like that's how that fight is, where it's just like he hits somebody, it's just like that, like almost like fucking like Goku or something like that. But with Bruce Lee, so it's more like woo.
I do feel like that whole school is just kind of like enabling him. Like, he's a guy who always had rage issues, and for some reason we thought it was a good idea to teach him how to punch.
I really think so, because he doesn't fit in with any of those people there. For some reason, like, and then like one day, he chose a wife like a fucking caveman, probably. Like they're just like, should we is that safe to let her go with him? Like, what? It's probably safer if he does have somebody. You know what I mean?
Maybe she can calm him down.
I think Master set it up because he kept trying to take Master out places, and Master I think got a little weird. He's older fella. He's not into like the new ways of what's going on. Didn't realize that. I think that he realized
ready for this generation's new values.
Yeah, Shenzhen just liked him a little too much. Oh God.
He almost like looks at her the way how he fights somebody, just like stares at her very intently, then just points at her, and then just like kind of biting his lower lip, just like then points to the room, like all wide-eyed shit.
I also love when she goes to fight him. She's like, "Oh, I have an idea where he'll be at," and he's like at Master's grave, of course. And I love how he's just like stolen like someone's dog out of their probably backyard, is fucking barbecuing it right next to the grave. Just like, because that's all I thought when I saw him. Like, that's probably someone's pet. He didn't fucking just go out in the woods and find that. He just reached around over a fence and just kept going.
Snapped its neck the second he like grabbed it by the neck. Like,
yeah.
Just walked away with it.
Yeah,
probably skinned it on his way over to the grave. Just chucked the fur over like a fence. Like, oh, it's fine.
Because that's the thing, is like, that's the thing about that, like, that Bruce Lee's character in this, there's just, like, one of those ones, you probably would have never thought of it way back in the day, but, like, now it's like, there's something off about that character. Like, he's just not a normal person. But I just love it's just like he's those ones just always there fucking hanging out. And I think that's the part where they leaves like, oh, well, maybe you need to get out of here. We need to send you out of Shanghai or whatnot and so on. And of course he's not gonna fucking leave. Like, you gotta tell that guy to leave. Like, you send him on a fucking boat, he comes back the next day. He's like a boomerang.
Yeah. He does just kind of have a tendency to show back up. It's like, what? Like, the guy obsessed with Master, where could he be?
Master's grave.
To check Master's grave.
Well, they're like, well,
I mean, he did just try to dig him out, like, before we even done over there.
Well, probably at that school they'll be like, it's a full like walk across town. I mean, like, yeah, we might have thought that he might be there, and probably is most likely, but I just walked around the block and came back and said I didn't know where he was. We sent Jackie Chan out there, and he got himself a new movie role, so he's not coming back.
He said he's pretty cozy where he's at.
Yeah. Or it's a work in progress. But he'll get there. I got faith in the boy. But,
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go for whatever you're going to go.
I was just going to basically reiterate the whole thing about just the love relationship in this movie. I mean, it's kind of tacked on as a romance, but let's be honest, it's not really. It's just kind of there. And to be fair, though, you don't really need romance in a Bruce Lee movie, in all honesty.
I feel like that's they have her there to sort of ground him, because God, he would be the biggest loose cannon if he didn't have her. God knows what he would be like. That'd be like a guy. Be like, what's he doing? He's sailing a ship to Japan. Oh no! Just the end of the movie is just fucking Bruce Lee standing like on a fucking like rowboat, and it turns, the camera faces just like almost like just boom, Japan. Like maybe just like one of those like stereotypical shots where you see the mountain in the distance and so.
There's like that episode
and then
of
just as the credits roll, there's just like people screaming and explosions and kung fu sounds.
Off in the distance, just hear like off in the distance, you just gotta hear that muddled with all the explosions. Like maybe at the end of like you just see a little mushroom cloud appear somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's one of those things where
you see the guy. This is like an even more badder taste, even though I know this takes place beforehand. You see the Americans are like, "We got a special mission for you. You're gonna ride the bomb down." Boy, this Chinese man sure hates the Japanese.
I'm just thinking, like, there's that episode of South Park where I'm sure they're parodying something. I don't think it Silence the Lambs this bit, but like, there's a part where he's just like the kid who's like basically Hannibal Lecter, who's always like TPing people's houses. He's just like, oh no, he escaped. Like, where is he? He's like, Officer Bob Brady, I'm going to do something I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. Hangs up the phone. He's walking with a bag of toilet paper. You see him just heading towards the White House.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that scene with Bruce Lee.
Just a distant shot of him just slowly rowing closer, closer. But he just has like the same like soulless expression on his face.
Bruce Lee will return in One Man Army. The sequel to Fist of Fury.
Hey, you have that narrator who's almost like talking to you directly, like, you.
Yeah.
You saw that movie last year, didn't you? You didn't? It's okay. Use the next one.
What's in your pocket right now? I got $2. Perfect. Just enough. Don't spend it on anything else. This movie is the most important thing you can spend that $2 on.
The most mind-blowing action movie you'll ever see this year of 1971.
How does a kick in the face sound? Well, that sounds kind of terrible. You're going to love it.
You don't want another one, because you're a dirty little bitch. Like, what? Yes, you're a dirty little bitch who likes to get kicked in the face. Don't lie.
I see what you do at night. It's not pretty either.
Fist of Fury.
One Man Army, the sequel to Fist of Fury, starring Bruce Lee.
I'm curious to know what this, with let's talk about the theme song just for a second, because I remember the copy I had, which was like probably some quasi bootleg thing, had the like almost sound like a bunch of chickens going like doing like a cluck song, doing that shit. And then the version I watched on Prime Video, because you know my copy, it's like in a box somewhere, and I'm in the middle of moving right now, so I don't know where it's at. So I just watched it on Prime Video. That right there had this whole like, I don't know, like a wannabe, like maybe he's in a Sinatra cover band. Like, well, I have my Fist of Fury.
Well, that's weird because I watched it off the Criterion Collection, so I just watched like the Cantonese version. It just had kind of like the Chinese type score, so it didn't. I almost got to forget. I think I do remember that song though, sort of on one of the DVDs I have.
It's basically, I'm not going to remember it word for word, but it's basically kind of like, my hands are made for, like, I can be friendly, I can be loving, but if someone hurts another man, then you'll deal with the Fist of Fury. Something kind of like that.
Say, my hands are made for fisting. I've got a Fist of Fury.
Gonna fist fuck your face. That was the original title of the movie when they said another draft on that.
Yeah, you know what I mean. There's probably a couple countries we could sell it of that, but that's not the ones that are going to make the money back.
Believe it or not, a lot of countries with like apostrophes in all their words. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. They're fine with that, but yeah, it's like one of those ones. I guess like at the end of the day, once he kind of gets that battle, then you have that last battle that's kind of sweet, where like he shows up and he fights, the Russian guy, like we kind of talked about, and so on, and then he goes to battle the, pretty much our samurai warrior villain, who pretty much has a mustache like he's in Tombstone or something.
Yeah, that villain, he wasn't like, because like I'll say this, I guess you can make a criticism towards the movie. He never really has an equal. The only time I think of his movies where he had close to an equal was like maybe, I'm going to say Big Boss. He was fighting somebody who was pretty much like, was a badass. I mean, granted, he was using knives. Bruce Lee wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then you also had Way of the Dragon. He's fighting
Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris.
And as they always said, like, Chuck Norris lost the fight then, but because of Chuck Norris's powers, like 2 years later, Bruce Lee died.
I don't believe that shit. No.
That just falls like one of those Chuck Norris like jokes, I think, at the end of the day. Which I want to know where those fucking originated at, like. You know what I mean? Like, I've always wondered, like, who was the first person to make that Chuck Norris joke and spread that wildfire?
Yeah, it could go. Who knows? It's just there was. I want to say the guy in whatchamacallit, in Enter the Dragon did not really. He did kind of the Room of Mirrors thing. He had a blade on his arm, and he wasn't really that much of a badass. He was more of just kind of like skeeving and mischievous. And then Game of Death, he was fighting Abdul Hakim Jabbar, and that was a challenge. So. The guys in this movie, they're not all as intimidating or tough as other ones. I mean, the Russian was badass, and the Japanese dude he's fighting at the end gives him a little bit of a fight, but not much of a fight.
Mm. Well, I think that's that thing that's like, because in a sense, you sort of have these movies where like you're selling this like larger than life superhero, but it's almost like that. Like it's almost like when you take like a DC or a Marvel comic, and if you didn't really have like a good, like if you just have Batman fighting like just a regular like mobster guy, it's not nearly as interesting as him fighting like Bane or fighting like the Riddler or something like that. You almost kind of want him to have almost another larger than life character to really like take on and so on. And I feel like if Bruce Lee movies would have continued on, I could have seen him having more of those like kind of larger than life, like, hey, here's another big actor, let's have Bruce Lee fight him in this movie. You know what I mean? Because Chuck Norris kind of like, and realistically, like Chuck Norris was ones like, that's like one of those ones in hindsight that's like, oh my god, that's fucking huge. But like that time period, Chuck Norris, I think that was like his first movie almost,
Yeah, he was just a karate champion by that point. They were friends, so.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing with that is, what was the example I was going to make regarding Bruce Lee in those movies? I mean, granted, I don't think you're meant to like be like, oh no, that dude is. I think this movie's almost trying to do this thing where it's not like, oh my god, they're so badass. Look out, Bruce Lee. It's more of like, no, they're a bunch of assholes, and it's gonna suck because they're finding a way over him, even though he is clearly the stronger one.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely right there, because it is one of those ones like, here's these fucking bullies that kind of can get away with pretty much murder, literally, and Bruce Lee shows up, fucking kicks ass, and so it's almost that kind of thing that's like, if you got bullied at school and you went back and you just kicked the fucking crap out of like that kid that bullied you, then you're the one at the fucking principal's office. And you're like, dude, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's sort of like what the moral of this story is. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, no respect, no justice here. Even at the very...
I want to just... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Even at the very end when they're like taking him out, and after he tells fucking Lo Wei, like, fucking Lo Wei, if you fucking show up at my house, fucking, and get... Bruce, that's not what we're going with. Oh, yeah, sorry. And then, like, he goes outside, and then this is where, like, it also reminds me, like, he's kind of, like, still a maniac. Like, I guess some people go, like, oh, well, he went to, like, attack those cops because, like, he just didn't want to go to jail. I'm like, no, I think literally that character thought he could take them all on.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, like, I almost will say this, I think he had a 50% chance. I know they had guns, but I feel that Bruce Lee character could have found his way around that. Or he would have been, like, fucking, like, shot up and still fucking throwing punches. Like, one of those, like, slobber knocker battles where it's like, he can't go fucking down.
Well, it does freeze frame before we actually see him die. So I guess if you want, you could like maybe he did make it. Who knows? Something I want to bring up real quick. Because, just for fun little facts here and there, I had Wikipedia.
Sorry, I just want to say this real quick before we leave that ending. Okay, think about it. He comes fucking flying off in a flying kick towards these guys, and there's about like 8 of them there just with rifles pointing at him and whatnot. Well, once they start just fucking unloading, that means everybody behind fucking Bruce Lee's also gonna be fucking murdered too. So that whole school's gone. Fucking Inspector Lo Wei is gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I thought, I'm like, dude, those cops just like, fuck it. Like, you know what? We always want this real estate anyways.
Well, maybe he's just kicking it out. Maybe he's deflecting the bullets with his feet.
That's what I think. Just like fucking literally fist of fury, smacking them away.
So here's a fun little thing, because we've talked about this a lot on. We've talked about this a lot, whenever we talk about Bruce Lee. So there's another Bruce Lee, Bruce L.I. We just refer to him as Bruce Lie. Yeah, exactly.
Because his whole life is a lie.
Now here's the thing. We were just making jokes. So chances are this guy went on to do a bunch of other things, but he was just in a couple of these imitation movies. And it was just one of those things that said, like, right here on Bruce Lee's thing, like, not to be confused with Bruce L.I. I'm like, holy shit, they have one on him? I just clicked it, and I was reading through this. A Taiwanese actor, martial artist, and Bruce Lee imitator who starred in martial arts films from the Bruce Exploitation movement. I'm like, Bruce Exploitation.
Yeah.
Bruce Exploitation movement. I was like, wait, what? And I click on that. It says, Bruce Exploitation refers to the practice of the part of filmmakers in mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and South Korea of hiring Bruce Lee lookalike actors to star in many imitation martial arts films in order to cash in on Lee's success after his death.
Well, because that was the biggest thing, because that was like the hardest part that Jackie Chan sort of had. He's like, those pretty much like that mid to late 70s, like that's all they wanted was fucking another Bruce Lee movie, another Bruce Lee movie, another Bruce Lee movie, and so on. And it's like it really took them a while till like like Drunken Master was kind of one of those first ones where it's like, oh, it can be fucking different and it actually works out, And even still, that still kind of took Jackie Chan another couple more years before he was able to get like Police Story and so on, and start doing these many different films. And yeah, just like that. I always think of Bruce Lee. To me, he feels like he's the number one Bruce Lee of the imitator type guys. I mean, I think everybody sort of, if you're in Kung Fu, you've played a Bruce Lee role at some point. It's like Shakespeare almost over there.
Here's actually something else right here. Apparently, Akira Toriyama took heavy inspiration for Bruce Lee for like Super Saiyan Goku. Whenever he has that icy, I'm gonna kill this whole fucking planet stare. Mm-hmm. That came from Bruce Lee.
Nope. Well, it makes sense. I mean, that's the thing is like Bruce Lee just like inspires like so much. At the end of the day, I do think it would be kind of fun to do some Bruce Lee movies just for the heck of it. Why not?
Maybe we can do. Yeah. I mean,
like at some point.
I know I have two. I have like two. I don't remember them super well.
I got a few of them at least in those sets. I know for a fact, but that could be just because you never know what you might find. Because those are those movies that like, oh, it's just a fucking knockoff. But sometimes you watch them, and you're like, oh shit, this is actually a pretty cool movie, even if it is kind of a knockoff. Like it's got these neat things going on in it. You never really know.
No, you never really do.
And I mean, and like going back to like the regular Fist of Fury, Bruce Lee style, and so on. It's like the other thing that was sort of like kind of like interesting in this movie is that these Bruce Lee movies were sort of that separation to like almost what you would say like the modern kung fu movie, because beforehand you still had all the Shaw Brothers ones, and everything was always like like the 1500s and swords and all this kind of stuff. And now you got these street brawl movies with like going with real world problems like the Japanese occupation and all that kind of stuff. So it is kind of interesting how much that does like change. And like, I mean, at the end of the day, we still see, in a sense, Bruce Lee movies. I mean, even like there's like that genre of movies. I always call them like they're Bruce Lee movies that have a guy playing Bruce Lee, not like in a sense like Bruce Lee, but like kind of like there's like two of them that just came out. Like Ip Man 4 had Bruce Lee in it. I mean, of course, I guess you could say Once Upon a Time and Hollywood, there you go. My head is going through, not China, not America. We're going to get there. Not the West. I mean, it is in the West, but the different West. But it's just like you kind of have all those ones where it's just like that's what they are. It's like, hey, it's somebody playing Bruce Lee, and here's a section of Bruce Lee's life, and we can still almost make a Bruce Lee movie this way.
Yeah.
I think or the ever classic, Dragon, the Bruce Lee story.
Well, it would be interesting to watch the Bruce Lee Man, Myth, the Legend, just because it's this movie that it's just so much like for a minute, like, okay, let's watch this and like learn more about Bruce Lee's life than I thought. Then it's basically it's a Bruce Lee movie essentially. He's like on a set of a movie. Some gangster comes up, pulls a gun on him, like, all right, I lost a lot of money on you in a bet one time, so now you're gonna fucking pay for it. Then he just kicks everyone's ass. Like, oh, you are amazing. You will change the lives of a million. Like, I know.
I like that. I know. Don't need to tell me twice.
Like, fucking I was Kato. Shit.
But yeah, there's all kinds of that fun stuff. But yeah, really at the end of the day, Fist of Fury, the Chinese Connection, that one is one of those ones like still totally fantastic. Of the Bruce Lee movies. I don't like it as much as the Big Boss because the Big Boss to me is just like. I mean, I'll say the martial arts is definitely even more dialed in Fist of Fury, but the Big Boss, I think it's just the simplicity of that movie and just the setting and everything like that. I love that because this is those ones you watch this movie and it's like, oh, well, I can kind of do this, but it doesn't have that same almost kind of hey, here's this feels almost like we're at a real oh, okay, now we got some budget going in the movie. You know what I mean? Here's a full feature and like that. And still fucking badass all the way through. Shit, I was watching one of the special features on there, and it showed a clip of Bruce Lee in his child movies, and not like the one where Bruce Lee's doing a child movie where he's the school bus driver or something like that, but one where he's 6 fucking years old. That movie, it's okay, it was probably 1948 or something like that, or 49. It looked like it was 1890 in America. That's how fucking worn out that film looked.
Damn.
I was it literally looked like I was expecting a fucking piano player to be down there making the music and whatnot. And
ragtiming it?
Yeah, shit. Could have fucking gone and seen it in Red Dead Redemption or something like that. But no, yeah, Fist of Fury though, so sweet. Such a badass movie. You can watch that one all the time, always good. You know what I mean? And then, yeah, fun the whole way through.
Can't recommend it more.
But yeah, we'll continue some more fun Bruce Lee good times of some of the other following movies and so on. We also did if anybody wonders where this middle section is going to disappear at, we did at one point in time, only about a year ago or so, we did Way of the Dragon or Return of the Dragon, that Bruce Lee one. So that one's kind of there. I'll just sort of maybe reshare it a little bit more just to make it feel like it fits in between these two there. But the next one we'll come into is Enter the Dragon. And it's been actually kind of a while since I've seen that one, so I look forward to popping that one out. And on that Criterion Collection, I have that extended version of it, whatever the heck that has in there. It's been so long that I watched it, I probably won't be able to tell what the extended scenes are, but...
Well, hopefully my copy of the Criterion Collection comes in by then, so I can see the new updated version of that.
Okay. I'll say it's, weirdly enough, it's on disc 6. It's not on the Enter the Dragon disc. Just
That's weird.
Yeah, it's on the special features disc, so I was like, oh, okay, but yeah, do that. Other than that, go to oldmanorange.com for more comics, podcasts, animations, all that fun stuff. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
See you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange Podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comic Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comic Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunnigan Ryan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again, we're out of here.